Alrighty, I'm gonna start by passing out everybody a sticky note, okay? Here. Just stick it on your clipboard for right now. Alright guys, just stick it on there. We're gonna write something on there in a minute, okay? Alright, so first, I've got some pictures for you. I want you to look at these pictures when I say go, and we're gonna look at the pictures and think about words that come to our mind when we see the pictures, okay? When I say go, we're gonna write as many words as we can on our sticky note, okay? About the pictures.
James Jeremiah, Jasper.
James Jeremiah Jasper, he has, if you'll just leave the clipboard like that.
Alright, ready?
And look,
Hold on, keep them in your hand. Think about it for just a minute. Caitlin, think about it. Ready?
I'll bring you back.
Go. As many words as you can. Anything about the pictures. Don't have any right one? You stuck? What does this picture remind you of? And this, what's his shirt remind you of? Alright, stop. Alright, I've got two more pictures. Okay. Alright. Think in your head. Alright. Ready? Go. Alright, put your pencils down. Everybody get some good words?
Yes, Miss.
You think so? Alright. Now I want you to turn to somebody beside you. Haley, will you get up here so you can talk to Autumn, please? I got it right this time, Autumn. Alright, so y'all two turn and talk. Waylon, Allie, y'all turn and talk. Okay, and let's see if y'all have any words in common. Okay, we're just gonna whisper.
If you don't know my name, just call me Sky, because that's where we
Oh, okay.
I got Army Man, I got Blaze, Blue, and I got Houston, I got President Good, I got I got Teacher
Paisley. Just sit the clipboard down. Alright, Allie, y'all talk now. They gotta go. Ready, y'all talk. Alright. 1, 2, 3. Eyes on me. Alright, raise your hand if you want to share something that your partner, not you, but something that your partner wrote down that you thought was really good. Caitlin?
Superhero, right?
Superheroes. Haley?
Superman, firefighter,
Supergirl, superhero, okay. Allie, Maddie, if y'all have one.
I got this
What? Tell me.
strong, super healthy, good.
Oh, those are good. Strong, super healthy, good. Jordan?
I got Uncle Sam.
What?
Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam?
Yeah, because there's an American flag behind him and he was old.
Oh, okay, okay. Destiny, do you have one? What did you write on your sticky note?
A superhero that had kids.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. So everybody, I think, wrote down something about superheroes, right? So we're gonna read a book. Maybe that was a little clue about what our book is gonna be about. Okay.
We read that book before.
Did y'all? I know somebody checked it out at the library the other day. Jordan, did you? All right. So what do y'all think our book's gonna be about? A hero?
Yeah.
Maybe. What kind of hero?
Like a teacher hero.
A teacher hero?
The helper.
I think he's gonna
Okay.
help her if she like messes up and.
Have y'all all read it before?
Yeah.
But we
Okay.
haven't read the book. We've already read it there.
Okay. Okay.
Always worth rereading.
Yeah, we'll reread it, get a refresher on it, okay?
Yeah.
Alright, so today before we read, today we're going to do a couple of things, okay? So our lesson objective, what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to read it and then I'm going to read and y'all are going to echo read after me, okay? When I say a phrase, y'all repeat after me. Today I will learn
Today I learned
to identify
to identify
irregular plural nouns,
irregular plural nouns,
write my opinion about Mr. Falker,
write my opinion about Mr. Falker,
and use 3 irregular plural nouns.
and use 3 plural nouns.
That's a mouthful, isn't it? In my writing.
In my writing.
Okay. So do y'all know what a noun is? Raise your hand if you can tell me what a noun is.
Oh man, I can't remember.
Can't remember? Destiny?
It's like a word that has 2 words in it.
Okay.
2 words.
I think you're thinking of like a compound word, because y'all were learning, y'all did a station on compound words. Haley?
I think it's a 2-syllable word.
Okay, 2-syllable word. Jordan?
Action.
An action? Okay, that's close.
Action word.
A noun is not an action word.
Place, animal, or thing.
Say it louder.
Person, place, animal, or thing.
Good job. Person, place, animal, thing, object, that's a noun, okay? So sometimes we talk about singular nouns and sometimes there's plural nouns. Do we think we know what the difference is? Singular means by itself, one. Okay, we have a single apple. So we just have one apple, right? Sometimes we have more than one apple, and that's a plural noun, okay? So we're going to be talking about irregular and regular plural nouns. We're going to make a chart. So I'm going to write regular plural nouns. And irregular plural nouns right next to it. Okay. So we know that singular means how many?
One.
One. And plural means
Two. More
So-
than 2.
more than one. Yeah, so 2 or more, okay? So if we have one book, it's a singular noun. If we say books, that's a plural noun because we're talking about how many?
More than 1.
More than one. Good job. So then we have regular plural nouns and irregular plural nouns. Okay? So regular plural nouns are going to be like books, where we take book and we just add an S to it and make it books and make it plural. Okay, sometimes we have to change a word to make it plural. So sometimes we have to, like with the word foot. How do we talk about more than one foot?
Feet.
Feet. So we had to change the word completely, right? What about with child? Do we know how to say more? Do we say child?
Children.
Children. Not children's, just children. Okay. What about tooth? How do we say more than one tooth?
Teeth.
Teeth. And what about baby?
Babies.
Babies, and it sounds like we just add an S, but we actually have to say it.
Drop the Y, add an I-E-S.
Good job. Good job. Awesome. Not ING. Close. IES.
I-E-S.
Alright. So, with irregular plural nouns, you can't just add an S to make it plural. With regular, you can just add with regular, you can add just an S. Thumbs up if you get it. Thumbs up if you need me to explain one more time. You got it, Allie? Yeah? Okay. Alright. So we're going to read. First, I'm going to pass these out. Don't do anything with these just yet. Just put them over. You can just put them over your sticky note on your clipboard. Here, Jordan.
Jordan. Thank you.
You're welcome. There's two in there.
Wait, so we just put it on top of our thing?
Yeah, just put it on top of the sticky note and clip it on your clipboard. Don't do anything with it yet, okay? So when we're reading Thank You, Mr. Falker by Patricia Polacco, we're going to be looking for some regular plural nouns and irregular plural nouns. Okay? So raise your hand if you can give me one example of a regular. Jordan, what do we have to do to make it a regular plural noun?
One.
That's a singular plural noun. Haley, what do we talk about we have to do? Caitlin?
For the regular pronoun, you only have to put an S at the end.
Good job. You just add an S to a regular plural noun, okay? I'll write that up here. So we just add S. Okay, what about for irregular plural nouns? What do we have to do? Maddie, do you know? You're thinking, Destiny?
You have to do I-E-S.
You have to do IES or
E-S.
ES or change the word completely, right? So you can't just add an S. You either have to change the word or change the spelling somehow. Add something more than an S, right? Okay. Alright, did y'all know this was based on a true story?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I like it so much. To George Felker, the real Mr. Falker, you will forever be my hero. The grandpa held the jar of honey so that all of the family could see, then dipped a ladle into it and drizzled honey on the cover of a small book. The little girl had just turned 5. Stand up, little one, he cooed. I did this for your mother, your uncles, your older brother, and now you. Then he handed the book to her. Taste. She dipped her finger into the honey and put it into her mouth. What is that taste? The grandma asked. The little girl answered, sweet. Then all of the family said in a single voice, yes, and so is knowledge, but knowledge is like the bee that made that honey sweet. You have to chase it through the pages of a book. The little girl knew that the promise to read was at last hers. Soon she was going to learn to read. Trisha, the littlest girl in the family, grew up loving books. Her school teacher mother read to her every night. Her red-headed brother brought his books home from school and shared them. And whenever she visited the family farm, her grandfather or grandmother read to her by the stone fireplace. When she turned 5 and went to kindergarten, most of all she hoped to read. Each day she saw the kids in the first grade across the hall reading, and before the year was over, some of the kids in her own class began to read. Not Trisha. Still, she loved being at school because she could draw. The other kids would crowd around her and watch her do her magic with the crayons. In first grade, you'll learn to read, her brother said. So let's look at this page. Do we have any regular plural nouns on this page? Do you remember? I know you can't see it, but what about books?
Yes. Regular.
Regular? Because why?
Because there's only an S at the end.
Okay. Good job. What about kids?
Yeah. Regular.
Regular.
Because there's only an S.
And another word on this page, crayons.
Regular.
Regular. Okay. Good job. So we don't have any irregular ones on that page. In first grade, Trisha sat in a circle with the other kids. They were all holding Our Neighborhood, their first reader, sounding out letters and words. They said, b, 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 oi, boy, and l, look. The teacher smiled at them when they put all the sounds together and got a word right. But when Trisha looked at a page, all she saw were wiggling shapes, and when she tried to sound out words, the other kids laughed at her. Trisha, what are you looking at in the book? They'd say. I'm reading, she'd say back to them. But her teacher would move on to the next person. Always when it was her turn to read, her teacher had to help her with every single word. And while the other kids moved up into the second reader and third reader, she stayed alone in Our Neighborhood. Trisha began to feel different. She began to feel dumb. The harder words got for the little girl, the more and more time she spent drawing. How she loved to draw. Or just sitting and dreaming. Or when she could, going for walks with her grandmother. One summer day, she and her grandma were walking together in the small woods behind their farm. It was twilight. The air was sweet and warm. Fireflies were just coming up from the grasses. As they walked, Trisha said, Grandma, do you think I'm different? Of course, her grandma answered. To be different is the miracle of life. You see, all of those little fireflies, everyone is different. Do you think I'm smart? Trisha didn't feel smart. Her grandma hugged her. You are the smartest, quickest, dearest little thing ever. Right then, the little girl felt safe in her grandma's arms. Reading didn't matter so much. Alright, there's one irregular plural noun on this page. Do you know what it is? What about fireflies? Yeah?
And
Why?
because it has
I might have to write it out for y'all to see it.
because it has an I-E-S.
Yeah, because how do you normally spell firefly? You usually spell it like, if it was a singular, one firefly, you would spell it with a Y, right? So to make it plural, we had to drop the Y
I-E-S.
and add I-E-S. Good job. Alright, now I want you on your graphic organizer. You have one that looks just like mine. And I want you to write these words that we already have on there. And we're going to add some more. But write the ones we already have. Give me a thumbs up when you're done so I'll know who's done. Alright, let's look at the regular side. Everybody say them with me. Which ones should we have? Books, kids, crayons. What about irregular plural nouns? Fireflies. Everybody done?
No. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Alright, I'm gonna keep reading. You can keep writing if you need to. Do you think Trisha will change her mind about reading? Because right now she doesn't really like reading, right? She said reading didn't matter so much. Do you think she'll change her mind about reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Some no's, some yes. Alright, we'll
No.
see. We will see. Trisha's grandma used to say that the stars were holes in the sky. They were the light of heaven coming from the other side. And she used to say that someday she would be on the other side, where the light comes from. One evening they lay on the grass together and counted the lights from heaven. You know, her grandma said, all of us will go there someday. Hang on to the grass or you'll lift right off the ground and there you'll be. They laughed and both hung on to the grass. But it was not long after that night that her grandma must have let go of the grass because she went to where the lights were on the other side. And not long after that, Trisha's grandpa let go of the grass too. School seemed harder and harder now. Reading was just plain torture. When Sue Ellen read her page or Tommy Bob read his page, they read so easily that Trisha would watch the top of their heads to see if something was happening to their heads that wasn't happening to hers. And numbers were the hardest thing of all to read. She never added anything right. Line the numbers up before you add them, the teacher would say. But when Trisha tried, the numbers looked like a stack of blocks, wobbly and ready to fall. She just knew she was dumb. Then one day, her mother announced that she had gotten a teaching job in California, a long way from the family farm in Michigan. Even though her grandma and grandpa were gone, the little girl didn't want to move. Maybe, though, the teachers and kids at her new school wouldn't know how dumb she was. She and her mother and brother moved across the country in a two-tone 1949 Plymouth. It took 5 days. It's a lot of traveling, isn't it? But at the new school, it was the same. When she tried to read, she stumbled over words. The cat ran. She was reading like a baby in the 3rd grade. And when her teacher read along with them and called on Trisha for an answer, she gave the wrong answer every time. Hey, dummy, a boy called out to her on the playground. How come you so dumb? Other kids stood near him and they laughed. Trisha could feel the tears burning in her eyes. Oh, how she longed to go back to her grandparents' farm in Michigan. Alright, so there's no irregular pronouns on this page, but if we had to make baby, the word baby was on this page. If we had to make baby irregular, what do we do to it?
I dropped the
To make babies. Okay.
Can I go get my jacket?
Alright, so everybody add babies. You don't have to write baby, just add babies to your chart. Now Trisha wanted to go to school less and less. I have a sore throat, she'd say to her mother, or I have a stomach ache. She dreamed more and more and drew more and more, and she hated school. Then when Trisha started 5th grade, the school was all abuzz. There was a new teacher. He was tall and elegant. Everybody loved his striped coat and slick gray pants. He wore the neatest clothes. All the usual teachers' pets gathered around him, Stevie Joe and Alice Marie, Davy and Michael Lee. But right from the start, it didn't seem to matter to Mr. Falker which kids were the cutest, or the smartest, or the best at anything. Mr. Falker would stand behind Trisha whenever she was drawing and whisper, "This is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Do you know how talented you are?" When he said this, even the kids who teased her would turn around in their seats and look at their drawings, but they still laughed whenever she gave a wrong answer. Y'all can just sit down. Then one day she had to stand up and read, which she hated. She was stumbling through a page in Charlotte's Web, and the page was going all fuzzy when the kids began to laugh out loud. Mr. Falker, in his plaid jacket and his butterfly tie, said, "Stop! All of you are so perfect that you can look at another person and find fault in her." That was the last day anyone laughed out loud or made fun of her, all except Eric. He sat behind Trisha for 2 whole years, but he seemed almost to hate her. Trisha didn't know why. He waited by the door of the classroom for her and pulled her hair. He waited for her on the playground, leaned in her face and called her Toad. Trisha was afraid to turn any corner for fear Eric would be there. She felt completely alone. The only time she was really happy was when she was around Mr. Falker. He let her erase the blackboards. Only the best students got to do that. He patted her on the back whenever she got something right, and he looked hard and mean at any kid who teased her. Y'all like Mr. Falker so much? But the nicer Mr. Falker was to Trisha, the worse Eric treated her. He got all the other kids to wait for her on the playground, or in the cafeteria, or even in the bathroom, and to jump out and call her stupid or ugly, and Trisha began to believe them. She discovered that if she asked to go to the bathroom just before recess, she could hide under the inside stairwell during the free time and not have to go outside at all. In that dark place, she felt completely safe. But one day at recess, Eric followed her to her secret hiding place. "Have you become a mole?" he laughed, and he pulled her out into the hall and danced around her. Dumbbell, dumbbell, maggoty old dumbbell. Trisha buried her head in her arms and curled up in a ball. Suddenly she heard footsteps. It was Mr. Falker. He marched Eric down to the office. When he came back, he found Trisha. "I don't think you'll have to worry about that boy again," he said softly. "What was he teasing you about, little one?" "I don't know," Trisha shrugged. Trisha was sure Mr. Falker believed that she could read. She had learned to memorize what the kid next to her was reading, or she would wait for Mr. Falker to help her with a sentence. Then she'd say the same thing that he did. "Good," he would say. Then one day Mr. Falker asked her to stay after school and help wash the blackboards. He put on music and brought out little sandwiches as they worked and talked. All at once he said, "Let's play a game. I'll shout out letters. You write them on the board with a wet sponge as quickly as you can." "A," he shouted. She wiped a watery A. "8," he shouted. She made a watery 8. 14, 3, D, M, Q, he shouted out. He shouted out many, many letters and numbers. Then he walked up behind her, and together they looked at the board. It was a watery mess. Trisha knew that none of the letters or numbers looked like they should. She threw the sponge down and tried to run. What do you think's going to happen?
She's gonna start reading.
But Mr. Falker caught her arm and sank to his knees in front of her. "You poor baby," he said. "You think you're dumb, don't you? How awful for you to be so lonely and afraid." She sobbed. "But little one, don't you understand? You don't see letters or numbers the way other people do. And you got through school all this time and fooled many, many good teachers." He smiled at her. "That took cunning and smartness and such bravery." Then he stood up and finished washing the board. "We're going to change all that, girl. You're going to read. I promise you that." You think he'll teach her how to read?
Yes.
We got like 10 minutes. Now, almost every day after school, she met with Mr. Falker and Miss Pleasy, a reading teacher. They did a lot of things she didn't even understand. At first, she made circles in sand and then big sponge circles on the blackboard, going from left to right, left to right. Another day, they flipped letters on a screen, and Trisha shouted them out loud. Still other days, she worked with wooden blocks and built words. Letters, letters, letters. Words, words, words. Always sounding them out, and that felt good. But though she read words, she hadn't read a whole sentence, and deep down, she still felt dumb. And then one spring day, had it been 3 or 4 months since they had started, Mr. Falker put a book in front of her. She'd never seen it before. He picked a paragraph in the middle of a page and pointed at it. Almost as if it were magic, or as if light poured onto her brain, the words and sentences started to take shape on the page as they never had before. She marched them off to. Slowly she read a sentence, then another and another, and finally she read a paragraph, and she understood the whole thing. She didn't notice that Mr. Falker and Miss Pleasy had tears in their eyes. She learned to read.
That's what I thought.
That is what you thought.
But not that.
That night, Trisha ran home without stopping to catch her breath. She bounded up the front steps, threw open the kitchen door, and ran through the dining room to the kitchen. She climbed up on the cupboard and grabbed a jar of honey. Then she went into the living room and found a book on a shelf, the very book that her grandpa had shown her so many years ago. She spooned honey on the cover and tasted the sweetness and said to herself, "The honey is sweet and so is knowledge, but knowledge is like the bee who made the honey. It has to be chased through the pages of a book." Then she held the book, honey and all, close to her chest. She could feel tears roll down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness. She was so happy, so very happy. And then at the end it says, since this was a true story, the author wrote, "The rest of the year became an odyssey of discovery and adventure for the little girl. She learned to love school. I know that because the little girl was me, Patricia Polacco. I saw Mr. Falker again some 30 years later at a wedding. I walked up to him and introduced myself. At first he had difficulty placing me, then I told him who I was and how he had changed my life so many years ago. He hugged me and asked me what I did for a living. Well, Mr. Falker, I answered, I make books for children. Thank you, Mr. Falker. Thank you." Y'all like the book? Yeah? How did it make you feel? Happy? Sad?
Happy.
Happy? Why happy?
Because Mr. Falker was very nice to the girl when everybody was bullying her.
Yeah?
Because
Exactly.
Mr. Falker helped her when she felt unknown and felt like she was dumb.
Yeah, and there's a boy named Eric. He wouldn't stop bullying her because Mr. Falker was good to her, but he needed bullying her more because he wanted her to be
Yeah.
really
He
sad.
bullied her more, yeah.
And he
You're right.
helped her on her reading.
He did. He helped her learn to read. Jordan?
Miss Bess, you know what? When I was in first grade, I had no idea how to read, but the next year, out of nowhere, I just started reading I've been reading for my whole life.
Really?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
happened to me.
That was beautiful.
Alright. We can stop and then finish.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I need y'all